The derelict signal, the salvage vessel tenacity, drifted through the debris field like a predator stalking wounded prey. Captain Elena Reeves stood on the bridge, her calloused hands gripping the railing as she watched the scanner feed. 3 months in the outer reach, and this was the first promising signal they'd encountered. Her crew of 12 had signed on for adventure and profit. But mostly they'd found emptiness and the occasional worthless scrap. "I'm reading power fluctuations from that Hulk," said Marcus Chen, the ship's systems analyst. His dark eyes reflected the blue glow of his console. "It's faint, but it's definitely active. No life signs, though." Alina studied the massive vessel rotating slowly against the backdrop of a dying red star. It was icily 10 times the size of the Tenacity, its hull composed of materials that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The architecture was wrong, all sharp angles and asymmetrical protrusions that made human engineering look almost organic by comparison. "That's a Kethel warship," whispered Joran. The crew's only non-human member. The Valerian's chitinous plates clicked nervously as he shifted his weight. "Captain, we should leave." Now, the Kethel don't abandon their vessels. They're extremely territorial, and their technology is far beyond salvage laws. Alina interrupted with a slight smile. "Marcus, any signs of weapons systems active?" "Negative. Whatever happened here, it shut everything down hard. I'm detecting catastrophic damage to the primary reactor core. It's leaking radiation, but nothing our shields can't handle for a few hours." Alina made her decision in seconds, the way she always did. Hesitation killed more salvagers than bad luck ever could. "Suit up. I'm taking Marcus and Yuki with me. Joran, you have the bridge. If anything changes, anything at all, you pull us out immediately." Joran's translator device rendered his objection in flat, emotionless tones that somehow still conveyed his distress. "Captain Reeves, you don't understand. The Kethel are one of the Accord's founding species. They've been spacefaring for over 3,000 years. Their military vessels contain security measures that have killed entire boarding parties. They designed their ships to be death traps for salvagers. And it's a good thing we're not salvagers," Elena said, already heading toward the airlock. "We're archaeologists with a profit motive." 20 minutes later, Elena's magnetic boots clanked against the Kethel vessel's outer hull. The metal beneath her feet was cold enough to read through her environmental suit, and she could see her helmet lights barely penetrated the surface, as if the ship itself was drinking in the illumination. "This material is incredible," Yuki Tanaka murmured over the com. The engineer ran her gloved hand across the hull, her scanner chirping softly. "It's some kind of metamaterial. It's simultaneously solid and porous at the quantum level. I'm reading properties that shouldn't be possible with our current understanding of physics." "Save the science lesson for later," Marcus said. "I found an access port. Looks damaged. I can probably bypass it." Lena watched as Marcus worked, his practiced fingers manipulating tools that looked primitive compared to the alien technology surrounding them. It was a peculiarly human trait, she reflected, this ability to break into things that were never meant to be opened. Humanity had only joined the galactic community 47 years ago, and already they'd earned a reputation as the species that refused to accept the word impossible. The access port hissed open, revealing a corridor that stretched into absolute darkness. Alina switched her helmet lights to maximum intensity, but the beams seemed to die after only a few meters, swallowed by the same light-absorbing properties of the hull. "Stay close," she ordered. Stepping through the threshold, the interior of the Kethel warship was a maze of corridors that defied Euclidean geometry. Walls curved in directions that made Elena's eyes hurt, and doorways opened onto spaces that seemed larger than their exteriors could possibly contain. Emergency lighting flickered sporadically, casting everything in a sickly purple glow. "I'm detecting organic residue," Yuki said, her voice tight. "Recent, too. Within the last standard week, Elena's hand moved instinctively to the plasma cutter on her hip. It wasn't much of a weapon, but it was better than nothing. "Crew, negative. This residue pattern is consistent with ... dissolution. Whatever happened here, it happened fast, and it was violent." They pushed deeper into the vessel, following the power readings Marcus had detected. The ship groaned around them, its damaged systems struggling to maintain basic functions. Twice they had to backtrack when corridors simply ended in walls of twisted metal. Evidence of whatever catastrophe had crippled this mighty warship. Finally, they reached what appeared to be the command center. It was a vast, spherical chamber with a raised platform in the center, surrounded by consoles that pulsed with dying light. But it was what floated above the platform that made Elena's breath catch. A crystalline structure, roughly 3 meters across, rotated slowly in a containment field. Inside the crystal, something moved. Something alive, Captain Marcus whispered. That's not Kethel technology. The power signature is completely different. I think they found this. This is what killed them. Lena approached the crystal carefully, her scanner going haywire as it tried to analyze the object. Through the translucent surface, she could make out a form, vaguely humanoid, but wrong in ways that made her stomach turn. It seemed to pulse with its own internal light, and as she watched, it pressed against the inside of its prison, as if testing the boundaries. "We need to get this to the tenacity," Alina said. "Are you insane?" Yuki's voice cracked. "This thing destroyed a Kethel warship. We should leave it here, seal this vessel, and report its location to the Accord authorities." Alina was already calculating trajectories and profit margins. Whatever this object was, it represented technology beyond anything humanity had encountered. Knowledge like that could change everything. Humanity didn't get where we are by playing it safe, Elena said, signaling Marcus to begin extraction procedures. We got here by taking the risks everyone else was too smart to take. As they worked to free the crystal from its moorings, none of them noticed the faint energy signature that pulsed through the ship's dying systems. A signal transmitted in a frequency that only a handful of species in the galaxy could detect. A warning, or perhaps an invitation. Asterisk the awakening. The crystal sat in the Tenacity's cargo bay like a malevolent jewel, its containment field humming at frequencies that made the deck plates vibrate. Alina stood in the observation room above, watching as Yuki and her engineering team ran every scan they could think of. 3 days had passed since they had extracted the object from the Kethel warship, and they were no closer to understanding what it was. "The energy readings are increasing," Yuki reported, her face drawn with exhaustion. She hadn't slept more than a few hours since they'd brought the crystal aboard. "It's like the damn thing is waking up." "Captain, I'm formally recommending we jettison this object before something catastrophic happens." Lena didn't respond immediately. She was watching the form inside the crystal, which had become more distinct over the past 72 hours. It was definitely humanoid, with 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head, but the proportions were subtly wrong. The limbs were too long, the joints bent in too many places, and there was something about the way it moved within its prison that suggested it existed in more dimensions than the 3 she could perceive. Joran Alina said into her come. "What do the Accord databases say about containment crystals like this?" The Valerian's response came after a long pause. "Captain, I've searched every public database available. There are no records of crystalline containment technology matching this signature. However, I did find several classified references that I cannot access without proper Accord security clearance. The fragments I can read mention something called the predecessor warnings." Predecessors. Marcus looked up from his station. "You mean the ancient civilization? The ones that supposedly vanished millions of years ago?" "Allegedly vanished," Joran corrected. "The Accord teaches that the predecessors were the first spacefaring civilization in this galaxy. They left behind ruins on thousands of worlds, but no bodies, no descendants, nothing to explain where they went. Most species consider them a myth, a cautionary tale about civilizations that reach too far." Alina felt a chill run down her spine. If this crystal was predecessor technology, then they'd stumbled onto something far more valuable and far more dangerous than she'd imagined. She was about to order a course change to the nearest Accord station when the alarms began screaming. "Contact," Marcus shouted. 3 vessels just dropped out of FTL at the edge of scanner range. "They're not broadcasting identification codes, and their weapons are hot, Kethel." Alina was already running toward the bridge. "Negative. The signatures don't match any known species in the database. Captain, these ships are big. Each one is at least twice the size of that warship we found." Alina burst onto the bridge, and immediately understood the fear in Marcus's voice. The three vessels on the main screen were nightmares made manifest. They were organic in appearance, all flowing curves and pulsating surfaces that looked more like deep-sea creatures than spacecraft. Bioluminescent patterns raced across their hulls in colors that hurt to look at. "Receiving a transmission," Joran said, his plates rattling with anxiety. "It's not using standard Accord protocols. The computer is trying to translate, but the language structure is unlike anything in our databases." Static filled the bridge, and then a voice emerged. It spoke in a language that seemed to exist at the edge of hearing, words that slithered into Elena's mind rather than entering through her ears. The ship's computer struggled to render it into something comprehensible. "Humans, you have taken what is not meant for awakening. Return, ... the sleeper. Or face, ... cleansing sleeper." Elena gripped her command chair. "They mean the thing in the crystal. Who are you? Identify yourselves." The response came faster this time, the translation slightly smoother as the computer learned the alien speech patterns. "We are the Wardens. We have guarded the sleepers for 3 million cycles. The Kethel violated the ancient protocols. They paid the price. You will return what you have taken, or you will share their fate." Elena's mind raced. 3 million cycles. If these Wardens had been watching over predecessor artifacts for that long, they represented a continuity of civilization that dwarfed even the oldest Accord species. But she'd learned long ago that age didn't necessarily mean wisdom, and power didn't always mean right. "The Kethel are dead," Elena said carefully. "We found their ship derelict. We're salvagers, not thieves. We didn't know what we were taking. Ignorance ... is not protection. Return the sleeper. And if we do, what happens to it? What happens to the knowledge it represents?" There was a pause, and Elena could feel the weight of alien intelligence evaluating her response. When the Warden spoke again, its tone had changed, become almost curious. "Young species. For decades among stars, yet you question. You bargain. You do not simply ... obey. Interesting. The sleeper is dangerous. It destroyed Kethel warship. It will destroy more. Return it and live. This is mercy." Elena looked at her crew. Marcus was pale, but resolute. Yuki had come up from the cargo bay and stood by the science station, her hands clenched into fists. Even Joran, who had every reason to side with the ancient aliens, was watching her with an expression she'd learned to read as trust. Humanity had joined the galactic community as the newest, weakest species. They'd been patronized, dismissed, and underestimated by civilizations that had been exploring the stars since before humans had discovered fire. Every human among the stars carried that burden, that knowledge that they were the newcomers, the children playing in an adult's galaxy. But Elena had never been good at doing what she was told. "No," she said simply. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the ship's background system seemed to hold their breath. "You ... refuse?" The Warden's voice carried what might have been disbelief. "I refuse," Elena confirmed. "You say the sleeper is dangerous? You say it destroyed a Kethel warship. But you also say it's been locked away for 3 million years. That tells me it's not just dangerous. It's important. Important enough that your entire civilization is dedicated to keeping it hidden. And anything that important is something humanity needs to understand." Captain Joran whispered urgently. "Those ships are charging weapons. Their power signatures are off the scale." Elena ignored him, keeping her eyes on the main screen. "You call yourselves Wardens. You've been guarding these sleepers since before any current civilization existed. But who gave you that authority? The predecessors. If so, where are they? Why aren't they here to claim what's theirs? The predecessors are gone. We remain. We remember. Guard. This is our purpose." "Then your purpose is failure," Elena said, her voice hard. "Because if the predecessors meant for these sleepers to stay locked away forever, they would have destroyed them. They didn't. They preserved them. Which means they intended for someone, someday, to find them. Maybe that someone is us." The Warden ships moved closer, their organic hulls rippling with barely contained energy. Alina could see weapon ports opening like hungry mouths. Her hand hovered over the come button that would order full evasive maneuvers, but she held steady. "Speak like you have choice," the warden said. "You have no choice. Your vessel is primitive. Your weapons are insufficient. You cannot fight. You cannot flee. You can only ... surrender." Lena smiled, a fierce expression that had intimidated more than one competitor in salvage disputes. "You're right. We can't fight you. We can't outrun you. But we can do something you've apparently forgotten how to do in 3 million years of standing guard." "What?" "We can learn." "Yuki, kill the containment field, Captain." "No." Joran was halfway out of his seat. "Do it now."
Oh?
Yuki's fingers flew across her console. In the cargo bay, the humming containment field collapsed. The crystal sat exposed for exactly 3 seconds before it began to crack. Light poured from the fractures. Not the electromagnetic spectrum of normal illumination, but something else. Something that existed in frequencies human eyes were never meant to perceive. The form inside the crystal moved, stretching limbs that had been confined for eons, and the wardenships. Those ancient guardians that had threatened humanity with extinction mere moments ago did something Alina had never expected. They fled. Asterisk the choice, the crystal shattered completely. Fragments dissolving into motes of light that hung suspended in the cargo bay for a heartbeat before vanishing. What remained was the being, fully manifest and terrifyingly beautiful. It hung in the air where the crystal had been, surrounded by an aura that made Elena's instruments scream, warnings about spatial distortions and temporal anomalies. Through the observation window, Elena watched as the being slowly rotated, as if orienting itself to a reality it hadn't experienced in millions of years. Its form was humanoid, but constantly shifting at the edges, as though it couldn't quite decide on a fixed shape. One moment it appeared solid, the next translucent. And occasionally, Alina could swear she was seeing multiple versions of it occupying the same space simultaneously. "Captain, the warden ships are still retreating," Marcus reported, his voice shaking. "They've pulled back to the edge of the system. They're holding position but not approaching. I'm reading what looks like a massive power buildup. I think they're preparing to destroy the entire system." "How long do we have?" 10 minutes. "Maybe 15? Alina activated the internal come to the cargo bay. "Yuki, evacuate that section. Get everyone out of there now." "Already done, Captain." We cleared out the moment the crystal started cracking. But Alina, the being isn't moving. It's just floating there, like it's waiting. Waiting for what? Elena's mind raced through possibilities. The wardens had guarded these sleepers for 3 million years. They'd been terrified enough to flee when it awakened. But now, they were preparing to commit genocide to prevent it from leaving this system. What could inspire that level of fear in a civilization that old? "Joran, you're the expert on ancient history. What am I missing?" The Valerian's translator struggled to convey the complex emotions in his voice. "Captain, there are stories. Legends that the Accord's oldest species tell their young. They speak of the predecessor's final war, a conflict that consumed entire galaxies. The stories say the predecessors didn't vanish. They destroyed themselves fighting something they couldn't defeat. Some legends claim they created weapons of last resort, beings of such power that using them meant accepting mutual annihilation." "Sleepers," Alina whispered. "They're not prisoners. They're weapons." "Doomsday weapons," Joran confirmed. "Locked away so they could never be used again. The wardens aren't guards. They're making sure the war stays buried." Alina felt the weight of that knowledge settle on her shoulders. She'd released something that entire civilizations had worked for millions of years to keep contained. The responsible thing, the sane thing, would be to find a way to destroy it before the wardens glassed the system. But Alina hadn't gotten into salvage by making safe choices. "I'm going down there," she announced. "Captain?" "That's suicide," Marcus protested. "So is sitting here waiting for the wardens to turn us into plasma. At least this way I'm doing something." Alina was already moving toward the lift. "If I'm not back in 5 minutes, or if that thing makes any aggressive moves, You jump to FTL, and you don't look back. That's an order. The cargo bay was eerily quiet when Alina entered. The being floated in the center of the space, approximately 3 meters off the deck. As Alina approached, it turned to face her, and she found herself looking into eyes that contained depths she couldn't fathom. They weren't hostile, but they weren't exactly friendly either. They were evaluating. "Can you understand me?" Alina asked, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The being tilted its head, and when it spoke, the words bypassed her ears entirely, forming directly in her mind. The sensation was disorienting, but not painful. Language. Interesting. Your species has developed vocal communication as primary interface. Inefficient, but ... charming. Your predecessor, Alina stated. Or you were. Before they locked you away, it was many things. Soldier, scientist. Last hope. Final mistake. The being's form rippled. Time in stasis is strange. I remember everything and nothing. The war. The enemy. The decision to become this. It gestured at itself. We thought we were clever. We thought we could create weapons that couldn't be turned against us. We were wrong. What happened? We won. And in winning, we lost everything. The enemy was defeated, but the weapons we created to fight them were too powerful to be controlled, too dangerous to exist, so the survivors did the only thing they could. They imprisoned us, made guardians to ensure we never awakened, left warnings in every language they could imagine. The being's eyes focused on Alina with laser intensity. Warnings your species apparently cannot read. Read them, Alina said quietly. We just didn't listen. That's what humans do. We see barriers, and we find ways around them. We see warnings, and we investigate anyway. It's our greatest strength and our greatest flaw. A young species, curious, reckless. I have access to your vessel's databases. 47 years among the stars, and already you have earned reputations for being ... difficult. There might have been amusement in its mental voice. The other species think you are children playing with fire. Are they right? Probably, Alina admitted. But children who play with fire either learn to control it, or they burn. Humanity has done both. We've destroyed ourselves a dozen times over our history and built ourselves back up each time. We don't give up, and we don't back down. It's gotten us into trouble more than once. The Wardens will destroy this system. They will ensure nothing escapes. They have done this before when sleepers have awakened accidentally. Entire civilizations erased to prevent our release. Then help me stop them. The being was silent for a long moment. Alina could feel it examining her. Not just her body, but her mind, her intentions, her very soul. It was the most invasive sensation she'd ever experienced. But she held steady, letting it see everything she was. You are afraid of being observed, yet you stand before me. You know what I am, what I can do, and still you ask for help. Because I'm betting that after 3 million years locked in crystal, you're tired of being a weapon. And because humanity needs allies who understand that power isn't just about destruction, it's about choice. Choice. The word echoed in Alina's mind. We had no choice. The war demanded everything. We gave it freely, became monsters to fight monsters. And when the monsters were gone, we were still monsters. Then choose to be something else, Alina said. The Wardens are coming. They're going to kill millions of innocent people to keep you contained. You can let that happen, or you can help us find another way. There is no other way. I am what I am. A weapon that ends worlds. No, Alina said firmly. You're a person who was turned into a weapon. There's a difference. Weapons don't get to choose. People do. So choose. The being stared at her for what felt like an eternity. Around them, the ship's alarms began to wail. Marcus's voice came over the cum, tight with panic. Captain, the Wardens are firing. Multiple energy signatures incoming. Impact in 90 seconds. Alina didn't move. She kept her eyes locked with the being's, willing it to make the right decision. The human decision. The being smiled, an expression that transformed its alien features into something almost familiar. Reckless, foolish, brave. Yes, see why the other species find you troublesome. It rose higher, its form beginning to glow with inner light. Very well, human. You have given me something I had forgotten. Hope that I can be more than my purpose. I will show you what choice looks like. The being extended its arms. Reality bent. Alina felt the shift in her bones as space-time folded in ways that violated every law of physics she knew. Through the observation windows, she saw the Warden weapons approaching. Massive beams of energy capable of cracking planets. They were seconds from impact when they simply ... stopped, frozen in space. Like insects in amber, the being's voice filled her mind, and this time it carried power that made her teeth ache. I was made to end threats. The Wardens have become the threat, but I will not destroy them. That would make me the weapon they fear. Instead, I will show them what I have learned from you. The frozen energy beams began to dissolve, their power bleeding away harmlessly into space. The Warden ships found themselves suddenly unable to charge their weapons, their systems locked down by technology millions of years more advanced than their own. Go to them. The being instructed Alina. Tell them that the sleeper has awakened. Tell them that the war is truly over. And tell them that if they wish to guard against threats, they should start by examining their own fear. What about you? Alina asked. What will you do? I will stay with your species if you will have me. You have shown me that even weapons can be reforged. I would like to learn how humans choose to burn rather than simply destroy. Alina smiled, feeling the weight of history shifting on her shoulders. Humanity had stumbled into something galaxy-changing, as they always did. They'd broken rules they didn't know existed and wakened something that had been sleeping since before. Earth's dinosaurs walked, and somehow, impossibly, it had worked out. Welcome to humanity, Alina said. We're going to teach you all the wrong lessons. I am counting on it. The being replied, and for the first time in 3 million years, something that had been created only to end worlds began to imagine what it might mean to build one instead. The tenacity turned toward the Warden fleet, carrying a message that would shake the foundations of the galactic order. Humanity had arrived, and they'd brought the past with them. The future would never be the same.